This afternoon I've called the press conference today to report on Bermuda's crime statistics for the first and second quarters of 2011, which is the period between the 1st of January and the 30th of June. And let me start by saying we've actually seen upticks in many of the categories. And that by itself is not worrying, because the first quarter was actually, for all crime, was actually the lowest it's been in many years. So to see some categories increase is not really that surprising. It's also difficult, I think, to see the big picture when you compare month-to-month crime stats or quarter-to-quarter crime stats, because the periods are so short, you can't really tell if things are getting worse or getting better. So we tend to try and look for the long-term trends, and we normally look at periods of 12 months. Certainly we would be concerned if the numbers continue to rise, but for right now, the year-on-year comparisons indicate that the overall crime rate is relatively low in comparison to recent times. And I'll start with the obvious, and this is always on most people's minds. I'll start with firearms. There have been 27 confirmed firearms incidents this year, and from that number, 5 people have been fatally shot and 4 others have been injured. The pace of confirmed incidents has actually slowed down. This time last year, there had been 6 deaths and 14 injuries. Now, we certainly don't take a huge degree of comfort from that, while lives are still tragically being lost through gun violence, but the lull is certainly welcomed from a welcome change from 12 months ago. And it certainly allowed us to keep the pressure up on enforcement operations, and I'll talk about that in a second. And we've continued to dedicate resources to quality-focused investigations, and I'll highlight those in a second. Since May 2009, we've had 15 trials for murder, attempted murder, and firearms offenses that have resulted in 12 guilty verdicts. 1 person is currently standing trial, another 16 people have been indicted, and they are awaiting trial in Supreme Court. So far in 2011, we've recovered 5 firearms and 2 stun guns. In 2010, you may recall, we recovered 11 firearms, 2 stun guns, and 7 BB or air pistols. In terms of enforcement, police enforcement, on the arrest totals, there were 1,334 arrests in the last 3 months. And if you were to measure 2009 to now, the arrest rate on a monthly basis has increased each year from 380 to 420 last year to 435 arrests per month this year. In terms of stop and search enforcement, police conducted 5,968 stop and searches in the second quarter. The average monthly rate by comparison has risen from 300 per month in 2009, 800 per month in 2010, and 1,700 per month during this year. The vast majority of these searches are conducted under Section 315F of the Criminal Code, which is the power to search in anticipation of violence. The searches are designed to disrupt the rhythm of gang members and discourage people from carrying weapons. And I would certainly like to thank the rest of Bermuda's public for their patience and support through these operations when they are unavoidably inconvenienced. Turning to drugs, drug enforcement continues to increase over the long term, and the rate of arrests and drug seizures is about 2.5 times greater than it was 2 years ago. Much of this is attributed this quarter to 215 street-level seizures by the police, but significant quantities continue to be detected at the ports of entry by HM Customs. Over $800,000 worth of drugs was seized by Customs during this quarter. Another $125,000 worth was taken from the streets by the police. And when you combine these totals with overseas interdictions or interdictions before the drug actually gets to Bermuda, the total drug seizures for the year stands at $6.95 million. In terms of total crime, for the second quarter of 2011, there were 1,139 crimes reported, which is an average of 12 and a half crimes reported every day. This has been about the same rate for the last 12 months. But compared to 12 months before that, if you go back to the summer of 2009, total crime has reduced from a quarterly average of 1,270, which is about 14 crimes per day. The long-term trend of total crime is downwards, and the first quarter of 2011 recorded the lowest crime since March of 2000. Crimes against the person totaled 196 for this quarter. It's remained underneath the 200 mark for about a year. The 12-month average is 188. Previous to that, the 12-month average was 230. So the long-term trend for crimes against the person is downward, and the first quarter of 2011 reported the lowest level since March of 2006. Crimes against the community, 227 for this quarter. The first quarter, or the start of 2011, there were 188 crimes, which is the lowest since December of 2008. The average of 209 represents a reduction from the previous average of 237. The long-term trend here, though, is too unstable to say whether this category is going up or down, although firearms offenses did decrease to 8 during the second quarter. And that's the lowest since the summer of 2009. Crimes against property during the quarter rose back up to 716 after a first quarter total of 625, which happened to be the second lowest number in the last decade. The increase is attributed to an additional 63 residential burglaries in the last 3 months. The long-term trend for this category is still downwards, however, and the 12-month quarterly average has fallen from 784 to 717. Tragically, there were 2 road deaths in the second quarter and 1 death in the first quarter. 560 collisions occurred during the second quarter. That's a collision rate of about 6 per day. And the quarterly average of 528 is down from 588. Over 11,000 traffic tickets were issued over the last 3 months, and we average about 3,500 tickets per month. Calls for service have continually risen over the last 2 years. Now that they are at the highest point ever, at 11,400 calls. On average, the police process a daily rate of 115 calls for service. So there's a lot of facts and figures there, there's a lot of numbers. I would certainly invite everyone to go to our website and download the full report, because if I didn't do justice to it, you can see the full report. If you didn't catch very much because I threw too many numbers at you, certainly there are some key messages that I hope you take away. And the first one is that police enforcement is significantly high. I don't like to use the term set records, but we are setting records in terms of the amount of enforcement, in terms of quantifiable enforcement, both in terms of drug seizures, arrest, stop and search, that type of thing. The other key messages are that overall crime is down, and I know that's a tough message to sell in the current climate, because against the backcloth of 5 homicides, 5 gun homicides, it's very difficult to see that full context. But that is a reality. Crime has been down for the last 2 years. It seems to be staying at a low rate for the last 12 months. But even though gun crime is down as well, it is still a significant concern for us. And simply saying the last 6 months were quieter than the 6 months before that is not enough for us to start celebrating just yet. And the last 2 messages are that community support for the police is very high. We have unarmed foot patrols in all of our troubled neighborhoods. They are very well received by the residents. The community support is also borne out in the amount of community intelligence that we gather. You will have seen a few significant seizures of drugs over the last few days. They were the result of people giving information to us. When we talk about the convictions in court, it's not just the evidence gathering and the investigations by the police. This is also reliant on community support. That's high. It's reliant on our criminal justice partners, and that partnership is very strong. So I hope those are some of the messages that you'll take away from the press conference.